Good morning. Hello. Welcome to the Distant Waves episode 150.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
We've done it again, the third 50th episode. This time, we've decided to do another tribute episode of sorts, and we've covered this band numerous times. I'd say probably 10 to a dozen times, about that many different episodes around our 4 years of existence. But we've
Yeah.
never done an episode specifically dedicated to Of Montreal, who was like in the third episode when I first picked them. So it's time.
Yes.
I gave everyone the choice of the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s because we have stuff from each decade that they've released stuff that we've not covered. And
Yes.
Ritz picked the 90s with the third album, The Gay Parade. I picked the 2000s with the 2002 album Aldhils Arboretum, and Trix,
And I
of
chose
course,
Chaos.
And Trix chose one of the albums Ritz swore he would never do on the show. You Are Fun.
That was back when I thought I was only going to do albums that we enjoy, but I've now grown up as a person. I started to appreciate trolling again. That brings it up. I mentioned I was going to put this on the recording because I think this is funny. I've mentioned a couple times I do a music league with the Oz Music in it, and which my main focus is to sometimes I pick up some stuff that I really enjoy, and I do try and give some people some of my taste. It might not be a recommendation because I'm probably already blasted on them, but sometimes it's even my taste. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, let's give them something that they'll hate. I feel like being a little bit of a dick today. And the theme for this round was remixes. So, I figured, okay, there's not really much remixes that I listen to that on the top of my head that people haven't already, blasted and everything like that. And there were a couple good ones out there that I figured could have been picked, but, they're not on Spotify. We don't have the Antiques Roadshow drum and bass remix. That one's only on YouTube. We don't have the Real Death Nightcore remix. That one's, again, only on YouTube. You need the Spotify link. But I kind of just went up and it's kind of funny I say Nightcore because I'll give you a spoiler. It is a Nightcore remix that I've actually picked. But there was a certain one I was like, hey, I wonder if like anyone's actually ever put out a remix of this. I feel like it would be a bit crazy. And I'm going to give Trix the first guess here. What do you think it is?
Is it going to be something like L. Ron Hubbard was way cool?
Nah. That technically has a stomach book cover. It's something a bit more in your taste. I mean, I know him as well, obviously was, but I mean, one that's usually something you bring up a lot more than us to do. Dominic, if you want to steal the guess, this would be the fun time.
Did you say it was a stomach book thing?
Yeah, it's not stomach book. It's I was talking about
L.
stomach book covering L. Ron Hubbard.
My guess would be Tubular Bells.
Tubular Bells is actually a pretty close guess, in the sense of the type of album or the type of the way that the album exists.
Is it going to be like a Hemisphere? Oh, or Dope Smoker?
Yep, that's it.
Damn.
There is a 4-minute Nightcore remix of Dope Smoker that someone's randomly put out on Spotify. It sounds
incredible.
like absolute crap. So you damn well know. And I was like, that's my pick. I asked someone else, like, should I pick this? And I said I couldn't stand it after 5 seconds. Pick it.
I'm very happy that we guessed it, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think
that was a big hint at the end.
Yeah, it was something that's kind of like we've covered it. It's kind of a throwback, and I wouldn't have picked something that I think was a little too like nut us to guess there.
Until you said presented in that format, I was gonna guess like a prog album, like a Rush Hemispheres.
Yeah,
I do kind of want to hear what a Tubular Bells would sound like, chopped and screwed, pitched up kind of thing.
Oh, that's my next album.
But yes,
Tubular Balls.
Tubular Balls.
That's the second time I've made that joke.
Anyway, I think the downvote record is like I think it's like -8 or something. It's no longer mine. It used to be mine with We Will Look Back at You and Love You Forever's I Am Who I Am Simon with -7. I reckon with the more people that we have now, it would have been louder. But I'm determined to get that downvote record, and I'm for certain this is going to be the best contender I've had in a while for that.
What's beating it?
I think it was just some really crappy pop song.
Oh,
it was one of those mainstream pop songs that has like no redeeming features, so people are like, oh, it's the worst of the playlist.
Got it.
I'd like to mention that throughout this episode, I will be eating a burrito that I have to hold with 2 hands.
I will try to find what it was. I believe it was in. I'm gonna have to go up and find it, and I'll let you know as it goes. But
for those of you who have seen the art for episode 149, you will get a sense of what the burrito is like.
Yeah, I have fun in the kitchen.
No, I found it. I upvoted this one because I knew the person who picked it for his shit post as well. The downvote record is Fatty Spin's Doing Your Mum with -11.
Oh, you have work to do then to get -12.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the best way to start with Of Montreal this time is to go just chronologically. Third album, The Gay Parade. The second after Cherry Peel. The bedside dramas in between. And then 2 more until we get to Aldhils Arboretum. So we're kind of smack dab in the middle of stuff we've not covered. And this is the part of Montreal that I tend to not go back to, generally. This is Kevin Barnes being twee as fuck.
It's the Elephant 6 moment of Montreal.
Yeah, like Elephant 6, if like it's like if someone took Neutral Milk Hotel and gave it to an 18-year-old and said, "Hey, do these songs and make them happy."
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you look at this, and I mean, we've covered basically like the best that Of Montreal has done with albums, mostly in the noughties, early 10s, as I think we could probably say was where the peak of Of Montreal was. So in a sense now we're kind of covering what is the leftovers, and it gets a bit kind of comparing this, and you're right, like the best one to kind of compare this to is really just Cherry Peel, because that's such a different sound to what the more peak of Montreal is.
Yeah.
And I'm also trying to compare it to the other album that we've covered, but I kind of want to save a lot of my thoughts when we cover that. On there, but it's if we consider this to be a bad Of Montreal album, not as a bad album, but just bad in comparison to Of Montreal's best, it's still a good album. We got a pretty. I like that we had this kind of constant instrumental themes wrapping around in the whole album. I like that it seems to have a whole concept going around it, which is what Of Montreal did in a lot of their albums.
Yeah.
But you are right in a sake of which it's like it is just kind of twee that just it's not as interesting as the stuff that was its contemporaries.
It's interesting in the sense that we know what happens next.
Yes.
I'm laughing because it's just so like, imagine playing something like Neat Little Domestic Life, and then you could flip to either A, the Pask is a grotesque animal, or B, polyaneurysm. And just the oral response is just amazing.
Yeah.
Because Neat Little Domestic Life, these are all character studies. It's like a concept album of the gay parade, and this is gay being used as fancy old word instead of homosexual, because of course it is. But Neat Little Domestic Life is like, here is just people living life, a married couple doing things together. Oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that nice? And then you just fucking have what the fuck happens to Kevin after this. It's so interesting that this exists.
I remember I picked this up this year on a CD because I found it for I think I found it at Dixon's Recycled for
Ooh.
$10. I'm like, ooh, of Montreal City. I mean, I had listened to stuff of this before, but yeah, it's weird how we're kind of covering of Montreal today because we're covering what is basically a classic, not a classic in the sake of it's a it's a classic album, but we're covering a classic of Montreal sound of Montreal album.
Yeah.
And then we're covering like the two different bookends out of all of that.
Yeah. I mean when we get to You Are Fun, that's kind of like the end of an era in a lot of ways. And and there's a lot of themes that have persisted from Cherry Peel onward. And there was the whole sense of Cherry Peel was a very personal, and like it was written in a way that was like more reflective of Kevin, and that was kind of what Kevin went back to once they got more comfortable with writing lyrics that way again, because Cherry Peel was not super well received. But this wasn't part of an era where it was just like, let's just write fun little songs and stories about people and do other things that hopefully people will like more.
It feels like in the 90s, unless you put out a grunge record, we really had a go at you for putting out personal lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah. remember how we bullied Rivers Cuomo out of depression? That might have been what we did with Old Montreal too.
Yeah.
Or did we bully them into depression?
Maybe.
Why not both?
Porque de los dos.
Bullied into bipolar.
But you do have some things here that are interesting. A collection of poems about water, for example, is a song that vaguely reflects stuff you would hear on like Skeletal Lamping, where there's a kind of a constant change of beat and tone and what's happening in the song to reflect the different poems that are being sung. Pretty basic here, but it's like, again, you hear Skeletal Lamping, and it's like, oh shit, it was happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of beat switches up in songs. I mean, the one that has got a lot of them as well is Nikki Coco and the Invisible Tree, which I think that just starts off with basically like it's almost like he's just telling a story. I don't think there's really any music.
Yeah, no, it's like a spoken word thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a very basic, just like, girl, this is all very whimsical, very cartoony.
Yeah.
And, girl goes up a tree that's invisible and falls asleep, and no one can find her, and then it gets into the verses about what happens, and they all try to find this girl, and then it can.
I gotta go see. Has anybody tried to understand what the fuck Kevin's meant on this by analyzing this on Genius? Let's see.
Oh, there's some great stuff later on for Year of Fun and stuff, but I'm curious what the Genius says for this.
No, nothing. No one's ever tried to analyze this one.
Interesting.
It's literally just like this whole block. I'm like, oh, someone analyzed it. It's like, the speech is amelodic. It's like, okay, that's not analyzing shit.
I mean,
I could listen to that and find that out.
The interesting things to kind of analyze are stuff like advice from a divorced gentleman to his bachelor friend considering marriage, which travels in some very well-worn, like, misogynistic tropes. It's seemingly intentionally.
Yeah, what? Too much conversing with a woman tends to dulls a man's wit. Yeah, that's just tricks. That's just tricks offering you the buff.
Yeah.
and it's said by a real prim, proper, seemingly English person in this sense. So it's like, this is how high society acts, and yada yada yada. And then you have songs like My Favorite Boxer, which is about idolizing this boxer who's really macho and masculine. And
Hector Romano.
Yeah. And there is the protagonist of the story being called a wimp. Very like.
Honestly, the whole time I was listening to that to the Favorite Boxer one, I was just thinking of the cover art to Daniel Johnson's Retired Boxer.
I could see that. Okay.
He kind of, I mean, the lo-fi kind of production in this whole album and stuff like that. It's not outsider. I'm not calling this outsider because that's a dumb thing to say. But it definitely kind of gave a bit of a that song specifically kind of just gave a big Daniel Johnston vibe. It was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of cute. I don't really personally go back to any of these songs anyway, so it's not really like it's a whole like I wouldn't go back to it, so it's a criticism. But like you kind of listen to this album for you kind of just have to like shut up and listen to the stories and just try to let your imagination kind of go with them and try and get something. And to some moments, it will just work and it'll be quite fluent, but in other times, it's kind of just, I don't know, you just hear stories that just don't really mean anything or don't really do anything.
And, you have... So at this point, Montreal's on Bar None, which is a record label that, they put out They Might Be Giants. They were working with Yo La Tango. So, like, there is some kind of pedigree there. And so it's interesting kind of reflecting, like, hey, before they found polyvinyl, Montreal was able to get quite a bit of notice, kind of working with these indie labels, but still labels with history.
I think the insane part, and talking about that as well, they've been on polyvinyl for like 20 or something years now, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think they released some albums exclusively on their Patreon, but their last album, Free Wave Lucifer Fuck was polyvinyl as well.
Yes.
Yeah. They do release a lot of like outtakes and stuff from the vault on the Patreon.
I feel like exploring the Up Montreal Patreon is going to be like an episode in itself at some point, because there's probably just a lot there.
Yeah, and like there's live performances. There's a ton from what I hear.
I remember there was a big thing because it was like 10 years ago probably now, that they were releasing Young Froth Tapis, which is like the earliest of early Up Montreal recordings, but it was like vinyl only. And I was like, shit, I wanted to listen to that, but that's kind of like the Patreon rabbit hole. It's like, holy, there's just gonna be so fucking much like that.
Yeah.
Now, which one was the first one on polyvinyl again? Was it? It was. Was it a Bedside Drama?
That was on Kindercore, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kindercore.
I'm look at all this.
I think Satanic Panic in the Attic was the first on polyvinyl. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. For some reason I thought Aldhils Arboretum was a polyvinyl release as well.
No, that was the last one on Kindercore.
Yeah, I know polyvinyl sells it, but it doesn't obviously mean it was on it.
Yeah, Kindercore was like a label in Athens, Georgia, that was like meant to unify the scene and like make a business out of like the Athens sound. Then they lasted only a handful of years, and they closed. They reopened as a record plant, and then the Kindercore name went away, and now they are known as Classic City Vinyl Works, the only pressing plant of vinyl in Georgia.
That's actually pretty cool.
But yeah, originally it was they were Kindercore, which was the record label that was publishing Up Montreal simultaneously with Bar None, and then for a while on their own, and then polyvinyl just fucking took over. Trix, how do you feel about the Gay Parade?
Yeah, that's
I actually quite liked the Gay Parade. It's got that lo-fi sound I quite enjoy, and it really sounds like a Beatles rip, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, people compared it to like Sgt. Pepper's.
It's very like 60s psychedelic Beatles, and I quite enjoy that sound, and I think there's a lot to be explored in that sound. And this was just this was really fun, fun album to listen to, and I'm surprised I haven't listened to it before.
Now, do you know who was in Up Montreal at the time of this album?
I do not.
There were a number of people. There's one very specific important person that was in the band at this time. And that man... that man is Julian Coster.
Yes.
AKA...
Yes, Julian Coster, yes.
The man from Neutral Milk Hotel that plays the fucking singing saw.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I think it's also his kid who's singing all throughout live at Jittery Joe's.
Oh, that's very interesting. I did not know that. That's cool. But no, there's a
It
singing
could be
saw.
somebody else from the band. It's just I remember something kind of like that.
There's a singing saw, I think, on the March of the Gay Parade. Exactly. That is like, uh, or somewhere in there that it's a singing saw, and that's fucking Julia Coster, and that's like a weird fucking Neutral Milk Hotel crossover. And putting it in the context of Elephant Six, yeah, it fits, but it's so
It
weird to
does.
think about now.
Mm. I mean, the song "Why the Crow" and "The Bay of the Good," I can't say the whole bloody title because I can't remember it all by heart. I feel like that one also has a lot of those kind of early lo-fi Neutral Milk Hotel vibes kind of going in there as well. So I can kind of see that influence of working on a member kind of like with a member, so kind of going on to this as well. But then, yeah, at other times you can kind of mention it. That also seems to be kind of the structure's kind of starting to form for what later of Montreal would sound like in this album as well. So whilst it's kind of in this weird position of an album where it's it hasn't got the interesting topics that of Montreal would usually talk about, which usually be quite personal, I guess. Um, it hasn't fully gotten a coherent sound that of Montreal is known for and all that. It feels like it's very transitional of an album, and we kind of eventually get the groundwork
Yeah.
for the albums that we love in here. So yeah, it's weird. Like you wouldn't ever put this in top 5 of Montreal albums. I mean, maybe someone would, but I feel like just the highlights of some of those better albums are just so much better than just this period. Full stop. That is kind of a bit fucked. But
It'd be interesting to
still
consider,
important.
like, what would happen if Kevin just started singing Jacques Lemire at a concert? Would anyone know? Would anyone recognize it?
Like
I'm
6
I'm
nerds
sure
would
they-
recognize
yeah.
it.
I just think that'd be so funny at that. Just like if they did like a whole throwback like that at some point during the show, because there's just so much music that can be drawn from, and it's like, how does Kevin now sound singing these songs? Because Kevin's voice has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Like this Kevin is very, I don't know what the word is, reserved, very like sometimes almost flat in a way. Like it's very consistently sung, often like the same way or like in just a similar tone. Whereas, it was around I think Hissing Fauna where like they really started experimenting with like vocal dynamics, and like you can hear some of the backing themselves with like a chorus kind of moments, but there's some falsetto, but it's not like it was years later.
Yeah.
It was also the autobiographical grandpa is where the singing saw I most noticed it, but I think it was also on the March of the Gay Parade as well, because that was like a weird like horn cacophony weirdness that, like, if you put in context next to this being a year after In the Aeroplane Over the Sea comes out, and if you follow Elephant Six, it's like, yeah, all those sounds they check out, kind of complementing each other.
Yeah.
I still need to read that Elephant Six book.
I need to watch the documentary when it comes out. I'm very curious about it.
I mean, we know how long it takes for me to do stuff. I only just watched Phantom of the Paradise like a week and a bit ago.
What'd you think?
It's a good film. Fucking surreal as shit, but it was a good film.
I really need to rewatch it.
Jessica Harper, fantastic.
Yeah, the soundtrack's so much better with the visuals than it is just listening to it by itself.
Yeah, I've been trying to get my father to watch it.
I'm surprised he's not seen it.
I picked up a DVD. It's an import copy from I think it's like a South Korean one, and that was the only one I could find. But I feel like the thrill of the hunt was find the DVD and watch it on the big screen with my friend. And he randomly came over one night. I'm like, well, we've got nothing else to do tonight, and you're here. Let's go watch Phantom of the Paradise. So it's like, all right, we watched it, and yeah, it was fun.
Hell yeah!
Had some salmon that I made while I was watching it as well.
I remember I first watched it with a friend of mine in college, and my friend absolutely fucking hated it. But I was into it. But like that first half hour is so strong; it like tells its own story of a film, and then it just like kind of resets and goes again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strong choices in that movie. I quite like it.
Yeah.
But
it is definitely quite a B movie, is the way to say it. Like, I don't think it's ever it ever tries to be anything more than what it is, which is like great for any film that kind of recognizes what it is.
And this when B movies could exist.
Yeah,
they have a glam rocker called Beef. Like,
I love Beef.
like it can't get any more like
camp
than that.
Yeah. Is that? I'm just assuming, is that supposed to be like a Meatloaf parody?
Probably to some degree, but also kind of just like it's a silly name, I think, too. Just like Beef.
Also, rest in peace, Meatloaf. I will never forget you tricking thousands of metalheads into listening to show tunes.
And rest in peace, Meatloaf will never forget this world's shittest AFL halftime performance.
At least he was good in Tenacious D.
At least he was good in Rocky Horror.
But everyone with Tenacious D. Yeah.
I played Eddie in a production of we did Time Warp for my show choir.
Yeah.
And they initially wanted me as Frankenfurter, but the school would not allow it.
Of course.
It would have been incredible, though. Holy shit!
I saw Adam Newling for a Halloween show that happened at Crowbar earlier this year. Not earlier this year, like 2 weeks ago. And he and his band were all dressed up as Rocky Horror, and then they did a cover of Time Warp.
I love Adam Neely.
No, Adam Newling.
Oh, gotcha. Two different people, similar sounding names.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Anyway, Gay Parade, favorites, least favorites. Favorites, probably, I like... I think, there were certain moments where the lyrics and stuff like that do get a certain level of cuteness that it comes back to. Like, yeah, I vibe with this. And the songs like My Favorite Boxer are one of those. That's one of my favorites. I do like Nikki Coco and the Invisible Tree, because I just think that actually just does a lot more of the interesting sounds on this record comparingly. Least favorite? It's not anything I really hate, but probably something like Old Familiar Way. It's kind of just like not that interesting of an intro, to be honest.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jax.
All right. Favorites for me. I quite enjoyed a collection of poems about water, and The Miniature Philosopher. And I don't really have a least favorite. I quite enjoyed this album.
He's a miniature philosopher. Yeah, I quite like collection of poems about water. I think the climax of Nikki Coco and the Invisible Tree is perhaps the best moment on the album, when they all like sing the chorus as like a group, and it's a really nice coming together moment. But my favorite box was kind of fun too. My least favorite's probably Old Familiar Way as well. It's just uninteresting. I don't think Fun Loving Nun's that interesting as well.
Yeah, it's got to be between those two. It has a pretty weak start, this album.
Yeah, when you get to Tulip Baru, you can at least remember Tulip Baru. Yeah.
At least the next album has a much better of a start.
Yes. This is my pick. I think this is the most unsung of Montreal album there is. Aldhils Arboretum. The link between...
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You can after the intro.
This is the album after...
This is probably now my favorite of Montreal albums.
It's now your favorite?
Yeah, I think so.
That's incredible. So this is the fifth one. This is after Coquelicot, Asleep in the Poppies, and right before Satanic Panic in the Attic. Like this is the one before Satanic Panic in the Attic. It's a 2-year gap, pretty much. And I just think there's a lot of songs in here that are just great. I think it fully realizes what Kevin was going for. It has a lot of darker moments that kind of prelude what's to come. And just like you hear what's going on in the Gay Parade, and here it's just so much more interesting and done better.
Whilst the Gay Parade is kind of like a concept album of different stories of different people in the parade, I guess is how I would describe it as. and tries to be one full album. This one is, and it's as it's written, you can see in the press releases, I guess, or just the announcements or all the talks about this album. It's written basically as a compilation of songs.
Yeah.
But what separates this in a good way from the Gay Parade is that the songs in here are just so much more fleshed out, so much more interesting in their sound, the stories and the songwriting. It feels, it's not personal to the level of I have demons inside of me kind of level, but it's still kind of still talking about his own rambling thoughts, like Old People in the Cemetery is kind of just him rambling on about 1/4. I know it's not exactly what the song's about, but it's what it sounds like lyrically, but it just keeps flowing with the story, and hearing it becomes interesting. And I mean, you hear songs like Blank Husband, Epidemic as well, which seem to be about talking about somebody as well. Compare that to Gay Parade. And that's where just the simple basics going to go better. The songs are just better on this album than they are on Gay Parade.
Yes. I think I ignored this album for a long time, but then I think the song that turned me around was listening to Jennifer Louise and being like, oh, this shit's a banger. This shit just goes. It's a quick 2-minute song, and I think it is one of the best ones, just in general. It's a song about like a cousin you barely know, you've never seen in decades, and you're just like, how are they doing? And like you're like including like stuff his mom has told him, like, yeah, you're living with a special someone, you're working on getting your education. That's great. We're never gonna see each other. I don't know you. We're not friends. I'm just wondering about you. It's just a really fun song. It doesn't mean anything, but it's just constructed really well.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of dynamics.
I do disagree with Trix though. I don't think this is anywhere close to the best of Montreal album. I think if you want to say like your favorite songs or something are on this album, that's a bit more fairer. But I feel like this is just the precursor to Polyvinyl. I think this is where it's kind of good that we've done the albums that we have here. Well, at least these two. In the sake of that, we have the early of Montreal where it starts to become transitional, and then we basically have the end to transition here, because we still have some of that Elephant Six sound in this.
Yeah. And
I mean, Old Montreal will still always probably forever be called an Elephant Six artist because they were a part of it. But continuing on from that, this is where the difference between the Elephant Six sound and the Polyvinyl sound really kind of like it really reaches its kind of end, and then we're starting to get the Polyvinyl sound.
Yeah. I like there's just a lot of dynamics in these, like in the different songs. Like Kissing in the Grass is a really nice kind of like bossa nova tinged, like real slow, relaxing dance. And then, Pancakes for One is just kind of that classic old of Montreal sound. And there's just other kind of just weird things here and there, but it's like there's different stuff happening where the Gay Parade is so conceptual that it's consistent in its sound. Having this compilation of sorts is a nice way to kind of break things up.
Yeah.
Now, who is David Barnes? The
Kevin's
the
brother,
artist who's done it. Well, it's yeah, which I think that's a very cute thing to put on as the album on here.
Yeah, so David's first album was The Gay Parade, the first one he designed the cover for.
Yep.
And now we have Aldhils Arboretum, which is a really nice, just like it's just two people laying, on the ground, and the more male masculine is Blank, like the Blank husband, and the female is like very of Montreal-ish, more or less, like very kitted out in like art and design. And if a tattoo sleeve could be a person,
I think I've met a couple people like that.
No facial features, just the general body shape with tattoos.
Yes.
But the songs here are just nice. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not the peak of the peak of what Kevin's doing 5 years later, you know? But for what's left, this is definitely a nice find to have at this point.
I mean, I'm still in the belief that Skeletal Lamping is the best of Montreal album, and there's not really much that's going to change, having listened to basically every of Montreal album at this point.
Okay, 6 years after this one, then.
A couple. Yeah. It becomes a fight, I mean, I guess, because there are a lot of other people who consider Hissing Fauna to be the best.
Yeah.
Or some people probably also consider Satanic Panic, maybe. And then, which one do you consider to be the best, Dominic?
False Priest.
Yeah. At least someone likes False Priest.
Or Paralytic Stalks. Yeah. Sometimes it could be either one, but I'd probably False Priest will always win.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made for everyone just kind of finding the part of Montreal they like the best. And if Trix likes this era, I can understand that as someone who likes the transition out of the glam rock, the False Priest, Paralytic Stalks era.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you live. There's an old Montreal album for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the whole point, really.
Like how everybody has a different Ben and Jerry's flavor.
Yeah.
And here's shit. True. It's sad. I'm gonna be honest. They're muffled on my end. But Tricks, I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I will say Death Dance of Only Papas and Sons for You is a very of Montreal title. It would not be out of place on Sunlandic Twins.
Yeah, I could see that.
And in some ways...
Surprisingly, though, I think this is the one I got the least to say about.
I probably, for a decade...
Of Montreal.
For a decade until I did this episode, thought that track 5 was the Black Husband Epidemic. And I was very confused why Kevin was being racist.
That is... Yeah, I could see that misconception.
Yeah.
And then I read it, it's like, oh, that's an N. That's a blank husband epidemic.
Oh, it wasn't Kevin being racist, it was me!
Basically. And then listening to the song more closely, it's like, oh yeah, blank husband makes a lot more sense.
On the cover.
Yeah, it's literally on the cover.
That is true.
And then just shout out for Natalie and Effie in the part being a very cute song.
I feel embarrassed to say that that's now just me realizing that, Tricks.
I kind of just put it together too.
Yeah, but you put it together first before me, so.
Yeah. And I'm also off a 9-hour kitchen shift and stoned as giraffe pussy, so.
Okay. Now I want to know how the fuck giraffe pussy is even stoned.
Well, because it's high off the ground. It's high.
That's... How long were you thinking of giraffe pussy to think of that one?
Yeah.
Because the answer's going to be more than you should be.
Hey, I've thought a lot about werewolf dicks. I'll say that.
Dude, that's just being a furry. That's something different.
Well, no, it's more about like the mechanics of the werewolf dick. Like, is it more Red Rocket or Man Wiener?
Okay, well now fuck you, because now I'm interested.
So,
it's a scientific inquiry.
Fuck.
Actually, no. Well, Trixie, you have to answer the question. Werewolf dick. Werewolf dick.
The
dick.
head restaurant.
Yes, their wolf dick. For me, favorites off Aldhils Arboretum. I think Jennifer Louise is a fantastic song. I think Pancakes for One is very fun. Kissing in the Grass is a wonderful, different kind of song from of Montreal, and Old People in the Cemetery just kind of rocks too.
Favorites, Old People in the Cemetery, definitely love it. Blank Husband, Epidemic as well. Least favorite, probably Kid Without Claws. That one just one of the ones that just kind of dragged.
Oh, my least favorite's Question for Emily Foreman, because I can never remember how it goes. Thanks.
Favorites for me, I quite liked the I didn't really, I don't have track titles because this is an album I'd listen to while I walk to work because it was the perfect length.
Nice.
And so I'm just gonna go off of like lyrics in it, and the one about like living in the country.
Oh, isn't it nice?
Yeah, Zone Nice, yeah.
Yes, I quite enjoyed that one, especially because like I've lived that experience,
I thought about you when I heard that
and I
song.
felt like, yeah, and it's like a very familiar, like even like before I moved in, I lived in the country, so yeah, and like I don't have a least favorite. I just genuinely enjoyed this album. There's a wide variety of sounds, and like I can see where like a lot of like lousy with Sylvian Briar sounds come from with this
Yes.
album, and I quite enjoy that as a precursor.
There's a little bit of country, a little bit here and there.
And the bass is fucking phenomenal.
Yes. But
Chicks,
now
I'm going to say stuff about this album, but I want you to do the introduction because it's technically your pick, or Dominic to do the introduction.
I can do the intro.
All I want to say is that this is 11 albums later, the 16th album. Go ahead, Trix.
When I picked this, I thought I was doing initially just a pure chaos pick, expecting to hate it, having not listened to it but prior, except for like the last track. And I gotta say, I don't hate this album. In fact, I quite enjoy it.
So, You're Fun. I mentioned a couple times in passing, I was very disappointed by this album when it came. I listened to it when it came up. I think I picked up the CD at Red Eye or something like that before listening because I just wanted to listen to an album and do it. And the single "Peace to All Freaks" and was actually alright. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll get some retroism on this album and stuff like that. And I'm going to take away all the context surrounding this album as well, once I mention this. But having listened to that album in full, I didn't like it. It was one of my least favorite albums of that year. And now we're coming back to this 3 years later. I've given this 2 more listens, so I've probably tripled the listens in total. And had a good think about this. And there's two questions I need to ask. One, is this bad for of Montreal standards? The answer is yes. We've seen the peaks that of Montreal can do. This is nowhere near the best that of Montreal can do. I don't think that's really a question between us three.
No.
Is this a bad album?
No.
I kind of think about it in some sense. And there are some moments on here in which I go, it is cool that Kevin has tried to do a bit of a change on this. But then when you bring in the context back and realize what everything about this kind of is, I've come to the conclusion that this album still sucks ass. I'm sorry.
It's also a fair take.
It sucks ass in a lot more interesting of a way than I originally thought it did.
The analingus expert over here.
Exactly.
So I think Montreal gives us a really interesting thing in that Kevin is so prolific. They're allowed to have a bad album, like a bad experiment gone wrong, basically, I think. We could talk about different albums being good or bad. Like, I don't think The Gay Parade is particularly fantastic. I like it, but it's probably going to be my bottom 5 of Montreal albums. I'd also probably put You Are Fun in there as well. But for very different reasons. I think You Are Fun is ultimately just a weird experiment that could have gone better, but for various reasons did not. You know, as we've kind of talked about before, this feels like a midlife crisis.
If this album was released instead of even just after Hissing Fauna, the EPs that came out, which that one was a bit of Kevin going through a personal crisis as well, I guess. But if this EP had came out around them, it could have been conceived. It might have been something that could have been put out on, say, a Train Records if Of Montreal was a lot bigger in popularity.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
It definitely feels like a flop album, but it came during a time where Of Montreal's significance and critical acclaim was going downhill anyway. So basically, everything we've got from this, if we get every time we get a good Of Montreal song from this album, it's just a bonus. That's why I was so surprised that Free Wave Lucifer Fuck was a good album.
Yeah,
after we've had this.
Kevin can still do it. It's just that Kevin works so much, not everything can be up there.
But
Yeah.
it's 150 episodes in. There are a couple phrases that you two love hearing from me that I will never retire. One of them is "shit me to tears," and "You've Had Me Everywhere" is
Yes.
of Montreal's worst song.
You Had Me Everywhere is boring.
Yeah.
It is boring.
It is. It genuinely feels like his new girlfriend has asked to have a song written about her, and he's just pulled out the first thing that's come to his head. But
which is annoying.
I've heard a lot of love songs in my life. Most artists have written a love song in their career. Of Montreal's probably written a couple. There is not a single bit of personality in it. Nothing feels personal at all. It feels actually like one of the most generic love songs I've had. Instrumentally, nothing fucking happens as well, which is bad. Like you can say, "Oh, but the production is clean," but it doesn't fucking matter. You're listening to what is the longest song off this record, by the way. Somehow it's the longest fucking song. And the chorus is listening to your breathing, realizing it's my breathing too. If something would happen to you, I don't want to think about that. And I'm sorry, what the fuck? I'm sure if I shat out on a piece of paper, I'm sorry to do this, but I could probably end up writing a better love song on that paper with it. That is just so generic. If someone wrote that as a poem to me, I better be 14.
Let's contrast this to Du Og Meg from the Hissing Fauna EP Icons Abstract Thee, which is Kevin singing about, at the time, his wife.
Yeah.
She fell in love with a boy who spoke her second language and who lived across the ocean in the evil empire. He awoke her sleeping heart and swept away the darkness. An acute fear of flying couldn't keep her away. And those just 2 segments. You have personality, you have storytelling, you have characters.
So much better.
She landed on her feet and joined his fledgling rock group as they toured the evil empire, selling t-shirts at the shows. You have politics. You have character progression. She taught him what was real. She taught him he was okay, that his thoughts were not just rubbish, that he had something good to give. There's good messaging in there. And then you go back to listening to your heartbeat, realizing it's my heartbeat too, because if something were to happen to you, I would lose my mind and never get it back. It's sometimes a folly to compare 2 different songs by an artist because, of course, the Beatles have songs called Help. A really popular song was Lollipop in the 60s, right? There are songs that are popular that are badly written or don't really have much lyrically going on. It's hard to shake the feeling that, comparing, and it's hard for us to do this because we're just outsiders who have no real knowledge of Kevin's life, right? But if Nina is Du Og Meg and Christina is You've Had Me Everywhere, then Christina means nothing.
We put it... To make a good love song is kind of a weird thing, because everybody likes to sing a love song, and, there were some people who would like to then serenade other people with love songs and stuff like that, and it goes like, well, shouldn't there be some kind of genericness into that so people don't have to change it up or anything like that? But what really makes a good love song, to me personally, is when I don't relate and I'm just hearing someone else's story. Because then it's just so much personal, and that's what makes them interesting. But... And we don't know his life. We're not sincerely saying, that Kevin Barnes didn't fall in love with someone or anything like that. I don't really care what the personal life is.
Right.
I care about what the music's happening on here, and it's out of all the of Montreal that we covered, it is the worst of Montreal song.
Yeah.
And if that's supposed to be that's supposed to be a love song.
You could tell me it's about any woman. And you could probably recycle it. That's
yeah.
If I don't know what their relationship is like. I don't know if they're still together or something like that. But if, they say went off and got married and had 5 kids, with that as well, then yes, maybe it's still legitimate love and stuff like that. But you're not going to convince me for that song. But that was it.
I'm gonna guess.
I will say, I think the greatest love song ever written is so like impersonal, and it can be about anybody though.
Sure.
And that is Talking Heads, This Must Be the Place. I think that is just the greatest love song ever written.
Yeah, but that song is at least interesting instrumentally at its worst.
Oh yeah, and there is no worst on that track.
Yeah, there is nothing worse. But that song just doesn't even have that.
Yeah, I was just making a counter to your point about how you like very specific love songs about.
No. I'm not saying what everyone has to think is the best love song. I'm saying what I personally think makes a really good love song. Because This Must Be the Place. It's not my favorite love song. I probably couldn't tell you what my favorite love song is anyway, because I don't know if I can tell you either. Songs.
But I mean,
This Must Be the Place also just happens to be a good song that is a love song.
Yeah, but I mean, you go to other songs like Polyaneurysm, and I think that if we're gonna keep on the story that this is an album meant to be about Christina, who also took the photo on the album art, kind of like Kevin exploring this kind of newer side of like people that are in open relationships and things like that, and kind of the freeness that one might feel after being in a monogamous relationship for so long.
Yeah.
And then, because, like, of course, the thing to mention is that this album came out in January, and I think by August or September, they had come out as queer and non-binary and bi or pan or something like that.
The song itself came out in December 2019, by the way, as well. So it came out even a little earlier.
Yeah. So, like, this is all kind of a precursor to, like, that reawakening and that change. And so, if this is meant to be a different kind of, like, panicked, I think at the time we were kind of concerned, like, what is Kevin going to do? Like, where is the future of Montreal if this is what's happening, right? We found out now.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it's kind of the best thing to happen, because Freewave Lucifer sounds more like an Of Montreal record that we enjoy. It was something that we quite liked.
Yeah.
It just took...
And
Kevin coming forward a bit.
Even with Polyaneurysm, even though lyrically I still think it's not really that fantastic. I mean, at least the topic is a bit more interesting. Comparing, I don't think at least it has a little fun kind of I could at least go to that song and just go, okay, well, if I really just don't take this seriously, this whole sound that they're going for, I can have fun with it.
Yeah.
Because when the album title is called You're Fun. Yeah. But after that, I mean, we have some weird moments. That's just the thing. It's we've already talked about the worst one, but AG isn't the greatest Kevin sometimes, and oh boy, gets God's attention by being an atheist is it's a real Green Day sounding title.
Yeah.
Again, Kevin is about the same age as Billy Joe and Sufjan Stevens.
And which one of them put out the best 2020 album? It was definitely Stefan.
I would agree with you.
Ooh, I really, really like Money Money 2020 Part 2.
Oh, you're right. That is true. We have to do Sufjan's album for that year. For me to really be sure.
It's a pretty fucking good album.
But I mean, at the very least, Get God's Attention by Being an Atheist has lyrics that seem like it's an Of Montreal song. The first fucking line is contextualized in the metal bibliothèque, as if to say, I am the Redeemer. Where alpaca is the most practical safe word. That's kind of word salady. That's kind of just Kevin writing. But it damn sure sounds like what Kevin does versus You've Had Me Everywhere.
All right. Now that you've done the opening of the first verse, Dominic, how about you do the opening of the chorus?
We don't want to be safe. We want experience. We want it louder. It's crushing our ears. We don't give a fuck. We want it louder. That's Green Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not going to deny you that.
I have an argument for this album.
Yeah. It's
If you shut your brain off and treat the voice as just like an instrument, like a pitched instrument, this is a kind of fun album.
But the thing is, I just can't do that with this.
That's fair.
I've tried it, and with polyaneurysm, I can do that. With polyaneurysm and Peace to All Freaks, I can do that. But even then, at least both of them are still actually interesting enough that I don't really need to do that, even if the songs themselves are as good as they are. And then after that, you kind of just expected to shut your brain off for all this. But Of Montreal has already made such a name for themselves as being quite an innovative, inventive, creative artist. I'm not just getting music here that is, it's cheesy and have fun. Of Montreal might have had some tree or some kind of just real like whimsical moments to them. But this album suddenly throws all that away and supposed to be saying, oh, you're supposed to just have fun or anything like that. But that isn't just what the music was.
I mean,
it's such a weird album to exist. We are basically just throwing away Of Montreal in this album.
I mean, even down to David Barnes didn't do the cover. It was Christina that did the cover.
Mm.
You know, it's completely different style. It's completely different everything than what we're usually used to seeing.
Yeah.
Trix, I've got one of your old reviews. Your Fun popped up on my radio, and I put the title 20th Century Schizophrenic Revengeoid Man, but the song sucks ass.
Yeah, I still stand by that. That's probably the worst song off the album.
No, You Have Me Everywhere is way worse.
Yeah.
20th century.
Yeah, that's fair.
20th century has interesting instrumentation.
20th century schizophrenic.
Yeah, interesting instrumentation. I mean,
but
I think
it's just still not good.
Right. I mean, there are interesting songs. Peace to All Freaks, and not that I like using the word, but Gypsy That Remains is another interesting one. I think that's quite nice sonically. But I think another problem is that some of the songs here are just muddy. They're not mixed very well. They just sound bad.
Yeah.
I think I would like Polyaneurysm more if it sounded more clean.
It's actually incredible how the rougher production sounds better.
I just think the rougher production just sounds rough.
But the mixing's better on it in the sense of what we got in some of this, and I don't know. It's an album that just feels like it's got no passion in it. It is now to call it one of the worst albums of all time would be an absolute stretch. We have definitely heard much worse than this.
Yeah, Father of a Motherfuckers is way worse.
To call this one of the most, by far. Yeah. To call this one of the most disappointing albums of all time, however, I don't think is.
There is an argument.
Especially knowing the sounds that are in between. I mean, I think, have we covered Innocent Reaches?
Not yet.
I don't think that was the previous one. But this is the previous one I have on here. But, we covered Freeway of Lucifer, which sounds so good. And then we've covered some of the early, like, the mid-10 stuff. And it just sounds, whilst even then it's losing some of that appeal that Of Montreal had, there's also a gradual decline that happened where people just go, okay, well, this is just another Of Montreal album now, I guess. It's true, fans will like it. I mean, I haven't caught up with the Of Montreal fan base. I feel like we wouldn't even get like the Metallica fan base where they go, actually, Saint Anger is a good album. I think they just wouldn't talk about this one. So I'm going to go on the subreddit and be proven wrong. What happens when I search up Your Fun?
Oh, God.
I can't, in good conscience, recommend listening to any Metallica past Injustice for All. Even the Black Album, I'm not a fan of.
I mean...
the Of Montreal fan base apparently likes to say that it's a good album. To you, Your Fun naysayers, have you listened to it at least 5 times? What?
I shouldn't have to listen to an album 5 times to enjoy it.
I probably listened to it maybe 5 times over the course of its existence. Maybe that doesn't mean anything.
So someone agrees with you. If you have to listen to it multiple times to enjoy it, that's musical Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
And then someone replies, "No, you're just giving Kevin song title ideas."
Ritz, this is a question for you. Is this of Montreal's Drones?
That is the best question you're ever going to ask. In a sense, no. Drones was Muse trying to get back to Uprising. You know,
Okay.
it was the success of the Songs of Resistance that they were trying to replicate for a full album.
Yeah, okay.
The weird thing about Your Fun is that I don't think there's really a song on here that I go and say, yeah, that's them trying to do this again. Which is why there's some interesting things about it, and it's why you wouldn't call it worse. It's that this isn't just a repeat and worse. It's them trying something completely different, but they just don't nail anything of it.
I want to listen.
Drones was Muse trying to replicate their success, but without realizing what made it good.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back at some point to the album before Your Fun, White as Relic, Aurelius Mood, which is supposed to be like a dance rock album that's kind of like more of like an 80s dance mix of sorts. So
I've heard good things about it.
I have too, and it charted better. But where Your Fun is more pure synth pop, I think this is maybe where that evolved from. Is kind of that clubby dance rock.
We're searching up the reviews for this. What did Pitchfork give this? Pitchfork gave this a 5.9.
And Pitchfork gave White as Relic a 7.2. So
yeah. If I would score this, it would probably be light 2. Oh, yeah, strong 2 to a light 3. Transition.
I give it a solid 2.
I might be a little nicer on it and give it like a stronger 3, softer 4.
Yeah, it's just an album that I feel like, you know, maybe there would have been diehard old Montreal people defending it a lot when it came out and stuff like that, and a bit contentious in it. But I think we're a couple of years past, and now that we've, you know, it's all accepted that it's come out, and if we listen to it, we can safely say we were right when we listened to it. It is not good. It's, however, not good in probably one of the most interesting ways it could be not good.
It paints a picture of its own, even though the picture is probably not Kevin would have wanted to paint with it.
No.
I see myself putting this album on in the background to do chores to.
Why?
I don't know. It just seems like a good chores album. I can't explain it.
I understand that. I have some chores albums that I like putting on. But
all right, favorites and least favorites. Who wants to start?
I can start. I honestly don't really have any favorites. It's kind of an okay album if you shut your brain off and listen to it, which I can do. But least favorites are definitely the fucking boring ass one I forget the title of, and
you have me everywhere.
20th Century. Yeah, in 20th Century, whatever the fuck, man.
If I'm gonna be charitable, Peace to All Freaks is probably the best song here. Gypsy That Remains has some really nice, clear instrumentation because Christina of Locate S1, the girl that's being kind of sung about in these songs, helped on that song. So I think that added production kind of made that sound a little bit better. And I do think that, you know, the last couple tracks are more interesting and have maybe some better instrumentation going on. But I'm really trying to compliment an album I just gave a 2. So, like, you know, my least favorites are You've Had Me Everywhere, Saint Sebastian, Don't Let Me Die. Like, the middle section, I think, is just not great. And Polyaneurysm is just mixed so poorly, I think, that I would really like to like it. And conceptually, I do like Polyaneurysm, but when I listen to it, I'm just disappointed every time.
It's better in your head than it is in your ears.
Yes.
Favorites? You're right. Peace to All Freaks is the best song off here. In fact, Peace to All Freaks was kind of why I was excited. I didn't love that song, but I'm like, okay, well, I could get with this sound. It was the lead single. Least favorites are so much on here, but yeah, you've had me everywhere. Just like I know I was mean to it over the course of this review. I really was mean, and I was to that. And I want to say to Kevin, you are still a talented songwriter. But if you ever put that song near your portfolio, it will not convince anyone. It is just straight up one of the worst songs I've seen written. I'm sorry, but it's how I feel, and it sucks. It's one of the least favorite songs I've probably ever covered on this podcast. To be honest, I know it's very harsh, but I sincerely feel that about it.
And I will still say I think Kevin is
if it had maybe only 2 choruses, maybe I'd like it more, but it has way too.
I still think Kevin is one of the most interesting, complex, and one of the best songwriters that is currently living and writing. And, even with that, I not everyone can be a banger. Not everyone can be a winner. Sometimes you will just write crap and publish crap.
They can't all be singers.
I was just about to say that. Great Primus album.
So I'm gonna guess our top. I think it's gonna be a communal top 3. Well, not for Tricks, maybe actually. Well, actually, probably for Tricks too. I think we've got it.
Yeah.
I think we're all gonna say
go for it.
Aldhils Arboretum is our favorite. Gay Parade is second. Your Fun is third.
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty clear.
It wasn't really a contest. Yeah, there's just a massive difference in quality in all this. I think you could fit in so much in between, well, second and third, but I think there's enough you can pick in between first and second, and then there's enough you can probably pick in between first and anything.
Which means you were basically right when you called it last week that, we'd all be mad at Tricks, we'd think you were fine, and I was the one that would win.
Yeah.
But we've had our of Montreal fun. We no longer have to say you are fun or listen to it ever again. We can now move on to episode 151. What do we all want to pick?
I've got a couple things. I'm hoping not to steal anyone's thunder, but if I do, I do. That's just how it all goes, I guess. And we're going up to the end of the year. We got a lot to cover, so we've got to go through this fast. I got a couple more EPs and an album. Well, 2 albums, I guess. Time's a bit weird on this whole. First one I'm going to share is the new Doris EP, Birthday Cards. Newcastle-based emo act. They're now being covered. Next on the kind of EPs is technically more of a single, but it is kind of an EP. They had a cassette release for it as well, and as I've been saying, it's been stuck in my head, so may as well cover it right here. That's the 2 songs from Ben Crud, Hand Signals. Right. Going on to that as well, we're going to go into some Brisbane emo again. When I find the bloody album, it's the new Mouse album, not to be confused with Mousaturi. It's Mouse. We seem to have a theme going on now. Under the Light of the Air Conditioner. That is in probably around total an hour and a bit, but I do have one more to add on, and that's because we cover a lot of this sound. So I guess we should probably cover the one who I believe is the one who owns the actual record label, Death Pot Record, and that would be Salem's Coriolis, the lion who shot back.
Right. I can go next if you'd like me to.
Yeah,
sure.
All right. I don't have album titles because my phone is being really slow, but I have years and I know tracks that are from them. And I'm going to do 2 albums from an act we've never even mentioned on the podcast, I'm pretty sure. And that is the Beastie Boys.
I'm sure we'd mention them in passing.
I have no memory of mentioning them.
I wish we could look up audio.
I'll say. Yeah,
All right, what do you want to cover by the Beastie
but
Boys?
I want to do
150 episodes to go through, Dominic. Get on your bike.
but I want to. I'm going to do the album that Sabotage is off, which I believe is from '91.
94, Ill Communication.
Okay, that was the. We're just we'll do their first album in Ill Communications.
Their first album's Licensed to Ill, I believe, isn't it?
Yes,
The one with Fight For You, right?
Yeah, we'll do that one.
Yeah, don't search up what it was originally called.
I will not. And I'd also like to tack on the B-side Mullet Head. And I have a very specific reason for doing so.
Dominic sounded disappointed. Did you search up what it was originally called?
Yeah, but I will now. For License to Ill?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. They've since regretted it.
Oh. This will be soundboard.
This will be a fun one. Don't be a faggot.
Nope.
Produced by Rick Rubin, though, so that at least balances it out, I guess.
All right, so
I think these albums could solve racism.
Okay.
What are you picking next week?
I am picking a smorgasbord of fifth wave emo. Everyone's picked an Origami Angel project this year except for me, so we're doing the Holy Split EP first.
All right.
So, and then we're Ritz, you mentioned we should probably cover Elizabeth Whittington, so I'm going to do that. We're going to cover the recent and Making a More Consistent Spiral album. And
you gotta have to copy this all down so I can remember.
And then Dan Macy released an album, so we're going to finish doing Dan Macy / Catching Techniques. We're going to do the first EP, I Am 100 Gex Fruit Buff, Ilya, whatever that is, and then the new album, Duality of Doomsday.
All right.
I will put this all
I didn't even realize it's on Spotify now.
The Dan Macy stuff, I believe he just put it up there recently.
The new one, yeah. The new one is. Yeah. Sweet, now I can recommend my friend's Competitive Virginity.
All right, so that brings us down to Trix choosing Beastie Boys' License to Ill, Check Your Head, and the Mullet Head B-side, and I know why you picked that. Ritz has chosen Doris's EP Birthday Cards, the new Ben Quad single thing, Hand Signals, and Mouse is Under the Light of the Air Conditioner, along with Sadom's Cordialis's The Lion Who Shot Back. And I am finishing up our coverage of Dan Macy / Catching Techniques and doing the I Am 100 Gex ripoff EP, the new Duality of Doomsday album. I'm doing the Elizabeth Whittington and Making a More Consistent Spiral album. And the Origami Angel Commander Salamander.
Was it Ill Communication or was it
License to Ill?
Ill Communications, not License to Ill and Ill Communications.
Is it the one with Sabotage or the one with what's the one?
It was Ill Communication. I apologize. Yes.
Yeah.
Not Check Your Head. Sorry. License to Ill and Ill Communication. Those titles dovetail really nicely, so that would make sense.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, then the Origami Angel Commander Salamander Holy Split EP is rounding out what I was covering. And that'll do it for us.
Beautiful.
This has been Dissonant Waves. My name is Dominic. You can catch me online on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. I am also sometimes on the Games My Mom Found podcast. We did an episode of Shadow Hearts. You can see that on YouTube and other places that we don't post our podcast. And also, if you want, my student film Beat is on YouTube. It's a shitty student film that I highly encourage you to check out and critique on your podcast if you like.
I've been Trix, and you can catch me on your mom.
I hate that that's the dumbest joke probably of the day, but it's the funniest.
Yeah, I'm not.
Doesn't matter how old we are. Doesn't matter how many episodes we are. We're just all destroyed by your mom joke.
Yeah, and I mean Dominic made it first, technically.
Yeah, probably.
Oh shit.
I'm Ritalin. Just don't talk to me.
And theoretically, we only have a
Yeah,
few
good, all
You
that
episodes
can
shit.
catch
left.
me. You can catch me on my website. On my website, ritalin4kids.com.au. I have the channels in the description below. Yeah.
Thanks.
I just check out all of our shit, like the Dissonant Waves Twitter, the our store, our Redbubble store. I'm working on getting the clock and the puzzle working. Yeah,
Yeah, we only have a handful of episodes left of this year, so enjoy it while you can before we take our break. Have a wonderful evening,
and we got
day.
some fun things planned for season 5.
Oh, yes, we do. I have plenty of ideas still rattling around in the old brain. And 2024 will be a glorious year for us. Long live Dissonant Waves. Goodbye.